Last week, we saw the news that Amplify Publishing and Greenleaf Book Group, two of the biggest and most respected hybrid publishers, were acquired by a holding company backed by Blackburn Partners, a private equity company. Today, we're going to hear from Amplify founder and CEO Naren Aryal and Greenleaf CEO Tanya Hall about why that deal happened and what the future is going to look like. Tanya, I want to start with you. Can you give me a little bit of context on, for the people who will be watching this, about what hybrid publishing is and how it differs from traditional publishing and self-publishing?
Of course. So, as the name implies, hybrid publishing is really a blend between self-publishing and traditional, with the goal being to take the benefits of both of those models and eliminate the downfalls. So, while a hybrid publisher is investing in the work, investing in the production of their books, they're retaining their IP rights, which is critically important for a lot of people who are thought leaders, consultants, et cetera, speakers. And because they are actually investing in the production of the books, they retain the lion's share of the royalties on the back end. So for my business authors, I often say it's like bootstrapping versus venture capital, if traditional publishing is venture capital, and then they immediately understand.
Hmm.
So, but critical to hybrid publishing nowadays, because it seems lately everybody hangs a shingle and calls themselves a hybrid publisher.
Yes, true.
IBPA, to their credit, developed a list of criteria to help authors vet legitimate hybrid publishers. So you're looking for a publisher that does have a vetting process, that maintains a high quality standard, which we certainly do, that has a distribution arm, whether that's in or out of house, so that there's actually an effort to proactively sell the books in the marketplace, amongst other standards. But I would suggest that people read through those if they're looking for a hybrid publisher to help them with their publishing journey.
Yeah. And you didn't talk much about it, but the most important thing for authors to know is you have to pay up front here if you're going to do this instead of getting an advance as you would get from a traditional publisher. Naren, did you want to add anything to that description of hybrid publishing?
No, first of all, Josh, thanks for having us. Tanya,
Yeah.
hi, good to see
Hi.
you. And no, I think Tanya's covered it, and I'll just echo the IBPA criteria.
Hmm.
Great place to start as you begin the process of vetting potential publishing partners.
Yeah. So, if you look at what's going on in this space, there have been a number of really high profile implosions. The most notable one I can think of is Scribe Media, which had a lot of authors lined up and then basically screwed a bunch of them over when it went under. And of course, this isn't the first time this has happened. I I'd like to believe that this move to bring together two of the biggest and most reputable hybrid publishers will help with that reputation. Can can either of you comment on sort of what this might mean for helping people to understand the legitimacy of this publishing operation, publishing model?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So, what happened to Scribe is rather unfortunate, and we ended up working with a lot of their authors and helping them to the finish line. And I know Tanya, that's true for you as well. I can tell you what I'm seeing in the hybrid market, and data is tough to come by in our industry, but anecdotally, the space is growing and we're growing. And I know the same is true for our friends at Greenleaf. And so I think as more higher profile and more accomplished authors um, continue down the pathway of hybrid, I think that's just going to continue. And this deal is an acknowledgement of the growth of the industry. And we've been leading the charge as has Greenleaf over the last 2 decades.
Yeah, so I want to actually talk a little bit about the growth of the industry that you're discussing here and the rise of this new publishing model as being more and more prominent. And specifically want to understand what Blackburn, the company that's backing this, is trying to accomplish here. So can either of you give me a sort of a, what's the plan? What's the reason to make a move like this now? And how is this going to change the landscape for hybrid publishing?
So the plan really is to bring together a portfolio of companies within hybrid and traditional and other niche publishers, where eventually each company can benefit from strengths of the others. So in the short term, of course, it's just Amplify and Greenleaf, and we're looking at back end types of processes, accounting, and the unsexy things like that that often can be streamlined and combined for some efficiencies. Going forward, that might look different depending on who they add to the portfolio and whether, for instance, there's a self-distributed entity that might roll into Greenleaf's distribution. All of that remains to be seen, but that's the idea, not unlike a lot of other roll-ups that you would see in other industries.
So we can
Yeah,
expect to see more acquisitions of, you know, uh, well respected hybrid publishers after this.
I would say that's definitely the game plan, and that's one of the things that attracted me and Amplify to this opportunity. And let's be real. Private equity goes where there's a market opportunity,
Hmm.
and so there's a real market opportunity here to create the modern publishing company. And I think Greenleaf and Amplify are the first two dominoes to fall, and I think we're going to be hearing about other groups joining and in the process gaining the efficiencies that Tanya just talked about.
Yeah, that's interesting from my perspective. I often work with authors. A lot of them don't know what hybrid publishing is, and I need to explain that. And I need to explain here are some companies that you can work with that are legit. And I always talk about Greenleaf and Amplify and a couple of others in this space that I think are pretty good. And then I'm like, if you come to me with some other one, yeah, I don't know. You know, there's a lot. So it's interesting to me the idea that you could basically create a publishing powerhouse here that's designed around authors that pay up front and want to have a powerful partner as opposed to sort of roll their own and do their own covers and you know work with an editor that charges $200 or all the other stuff I've seen happen. Uh, all right, so there's a question that us industry watchers have been asking now, and I'm just going to come right out and say this. Um, we I've talked to a number of other people about this, and it's like, I this is not a merger. Um, and it's typical for publishing houses, major publishing houses, to have multiple imprints. This imprint concentrates on business books, and this imprint concentrates on the most powerful leadership books, and this imprint concentrates on memoirs, whatever. But my perception of Greenleaf and Amplify is that you're pretty similar in the way you approach things. So I'm trying to understand how there's a benefit in continuing to have these two imprints, these two publishing houses that are doing very much the same thing.
I'll tackle that one. But first, let me go back to what you just asked previously and just make a point. Like
Uh,
we're coming from a position of strength. This isn't a transaction where there was properties that were distressed or
mhm.
anything like this. This is a real a business opportunity to grow thriving brands, right? And so just I want to make that clear. And then to your question, we operate several imprints, as does Greenleaf. And so in those arenas, it's pretty clear. For example, Real Clear Politics, one of our imprints. Tanya's got Fast Company and Inc. And so there's some real distinction, just like the big houses, imprint driven. In certain areas, there's still going to be some what I'll call friendly competition and emphasis on the word friendly. And so we're still early in this transaction. And so some of these things are going to work out. Tanya mentioned that some of the back office things are going to, come together. But at least for the initial time being and for the foreseeable future, we're going to operate in a friendly competition way where there is overlap. And Josh, yeah, I would say that there's overlap in several areas, but there's also not overlap in others. And so that's how we're sort of approaching this.
Tanya, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I will add, I think it's probably going to take a solid year or so for us to really fully understand the nuances of how the two companies run differently. We're already discovering things. It's like, oh, you do that in a different way. So
Mhm.
it's not just about where we can combine things, it's also best practices and where has Amplify learned something that we can use to our benefit that's not going to take away a competitive advantage. That's the tricky part that we've been kind of working through, as Naren said. So it's very exciting. And again, I think it really underscores the fact that what the private equity firm is excited about and what they've seen in our businesses, if we have very strong fundamentals behind the business. And so those are just going to get stronger.
Yeah. It's interesting for me, having worked with authors that have worked with both of your organizations. If you say you're going to bring your accounting departments together, we're like, fine, good. Maybe, figure out who's got the best systems and work with that. And by the way, I am expecting to get phone calls from my authors that are like, did you hear that Amplify changed the whole way that they compensate us? And it's not the same as I'm like, yes, changes are going to happen. Um, but there's other elements, for example, production. Um, I most recently have worked with Naren on producing books, right, page layout and arranging for printing and so on, and I've been very impressed. But now you have two departments that do that. Another good example is marketing, where my impression has been that no hybrid publishers really do a fantastic job at that. So, are these kind of functions likely to get combined, or are they going to be kept separate?
I think initially they're going to be kept separate. And you mentioned production, right? And so on the front end, author acquisitions is going to remain separate. Production, we're going to continue producing the books that we bring in, and the same is true for Greenleaf. And again, we are still relatively new in this new era, and we're going to have the opportunity to examine best practices across the board and where it makes sense to make some changes. And I think we're talking about shifts rather than radical,
Mm.
departures from what we've done, because what we've done has proven to be successful. We're open-minded, and I think everyone wants the answers today, but I think we just know that we're going to be open-minded and improve our processes where it makes sense.
I mean, one thing that's interesting is I often work with authors, and then they work with both of you, sometimes with your competitors as well, and you get some sort of a proposal back. This is how much it's going to cost. We price this way. We price this other way. Your proposals don't look alike. It's often hard to figure out, how do I compare this one to that one, and they don't look very much like other people's either. Um, can we expect a standard format, or are authors going to be able to continually say, all right, maybe I can play these people against each other, even though they're part of the same company, and figure out some way to get the best deal for myself?
Josh is going there. He's trying everything.
Look, I work with
All right.
authors. That's all I care about is what authors need. So these are the way these things look to me.
Well,
Um,
competition is good for authors. So we are remaining separate
yeah, but
companies.
you just are reducing competition here. Come on.
No, we're not though. We're because we believe me, Naren and I scratch our heads about this constantly. We are definitely 100% still competitors.
Wow.
So I get that that's bizarre, but it's a holding company, and so we're not merged. We're operating completely
Mm.
separately. We're maintaining what's worked for us because, to Darren's point, it's not broken.
Mm.
I think I'll say this again. This is an acknowledgement that the space is growing. This is an opportunity to bring two of the premier brands under the same umbrella, and not just the brands, but the people behind the brands who are innovative. And Tanya and I and our teams are going to get in the room and talk about where this industry is going. And you can expect some more innovation coming from us both.
I'm looking forward to it, and I might even be involved with some of that innovation. I have some interesting things to bring to you, but I and it's also, let's admit this. Okay, I happen to have worked with Naren more than Greenleaf in the past, and he knows I'm a real pain in the ass. But I ask good questions, and I'm somebody you can trust. So yes, I'm not going to stop being a pain in the ass just because I'm doing this interview.
I'll
Um,
second that. I'll second that, by the way.
okay, all right. So I if I put you two these two companies together, are they bigger than Forbes Books now?
Tanya, I'll let you take that one.
I'm gonna let you take that. I, I can't speak to that.
Okay. It's just interesting because that's one of the other things that people go to, but it's also been my perception that they're very good at Forbes Books at extracting money from authors. So I'm pleased to have a stronger competitor here, but I just wonder if in your own internal meetings you're like, okay, this is really who we need to position ourselves against because they're big, right?
Yeah, it's more, I think, at least in our internal meetings, it's to your point earlier, Josh, about keeping the author's interests in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's really how do we best serve the authors, the thought leaders, the
Mm-hmm.
speakers, the consultants in this space. And that's our driving force. We always keep an eye on the competition, of course, to see what they're up to and if there's
Mm-hmm.
anything we can learn there. But that's what's really driving us more than anything.
All right, so I let's assume that I'm having this conversation with the two of you. Oops.
You lost Naren.
Yeah.
You didn't like my
I
answer.
I said I was I said
You
I was
really
a
pissed him
I
off,
guess
Josh.
I was more of a pain in the ass than I thought.
I think he's reached his tipping point.
Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. No, I'm sure he'll show back up in a
I
minute.
hope.
Um, there he is. Okay. Uh, so oops, I just admitted him under another. There he is. Naren, are you back?
I am back. You know, the internet just conked out on me as Tanya was answering the question, the last question
Okay.
you posed.
Okay. So we'll move on here. So let's assume that I'm having the same conversation with you, say a year and a half from now. Um, I'm interested in how the uh, Civica Media, the parent company, and your individual companies are going to look different. So tell me one or two things that you say, okay, this is this is what the world is going to be like after we've had this backing for a year and a half and we've made the progress that we've been trying to make.
Well, I think one thing that comes to mind that I touched on earlier is the intention has always been to leverage the strengths of the individual companies within the portfolio. Greenleaf started as a distributor. We remain a distributor. As I'm sure you're well aware, Josh, the number of distributors is not increasing. It's
No, no.
decreasing. So there are few and fewer options, but and it's very exciting to us, the idea of bringing in, as I mentioned, these companies that have been, as we say, self-distributing. In other words, they're really just handling their own say Amazon and smaller accounts to roll those into our distribution and give them broader access to the market. So that's one thing that I suspect will be coming down the pipe that I'm excited about.
Will there be a Civica bookstore? I mean, are we going to uh, have you assemble some sort of a competitor for business books to Amazon and bookshop.org?
There's been no discussion of that to date.
Okay. Um, all right. And um, there's a whole bunch of other things that go on with books here that are now shifting. There's people are making AI versions of books. Audio books are taking off. And of course, many of the authors I work with are concerned about international distribution, which has been extremely difficult to secure lately. I'm just wondering if any of these technology and market trends that are happening might how that might impact this combined company.
Well, I think we've always maintained that the AI is a tool, it's not a way. And
Mhm.
so going back to the best practices discussions, we lost Naren again.
Well, why don't you keep talking,
Okay.
Tanya?
I suspect that we'll be comparing notes about AI tools that we might be using in the business. It's a human driven journey writing a book.
Hmm.
So they are just that tools. International distribution is something that we've been doing for years. So The challenge there is, frankly, lately it's shipping expenses. To ship internationally is ridiculously expensive.
Oh
But
yeah,
there are ways to leverage networks of print-on-demand printers in overseas countries and not have to transport books back and
yeah.
forth. So
Okay,
those are exactly the types of things we'll be comparing notes on. Welcome
okay.
back, Naren.
Yeah. So but Naren's operations are usually much more efficient than this internet has been. There's one more thing that's really important for me to know about. Uh, the biggest expense in any publishing operation, including um, uh, hybrid publishing operations, is printing. Um, and a lot of people now are just asking themselves, do I even need to do that? Why can't we just use print on demand? Of course, once you start doing this through print on demand, you got a reasonable quality book. Um, don't have to have any inventory, and you're also in competition with a bunch of little pishers out there that are like, oh yeah, I can put a book up for you. So I'm just wondering, will there be a strong print on demand type offering from either or both of your imprints now in the wake of this?
So now that I'm back,
Yes. Okay. Yes. You get a chance to talk here now that you're back.
okay,
Yes.
great. There's always going to be a place for print on demand. I can tell you that at least for us, and particularly with books that are super timely, like, we do a lot of AI books, as does everyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Speed to market matters, right? But I can also tell you that the majority of the folks that we work with, they just value the offset print run. It doesn't have to be a big print run,
Mhm.
a reasonable size print run. And so that's still going to be a huge component of our solution. But you can't ignore print on demand. You can't ignore the ebook market. You can't ignore the audio book market. And so it's really dependent on the project and the project goals. So yes to all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would echo that. We present every author with both options and talk through the pros and cons, and it really comes down to what their goals are and the type of book that we're working with. I have an example I love to share about a male gynecologist who had breast cancer. That was one of our first print on demand books, and the book is
No
called
kidding.
I know, and the book is called The Lump. And we
The
scratched
lump.
our heads for a minute, and women talk about breast cancer all the time, but it hadn't occurred to me that men could also have breast cancer, and the fact that anyway. So then we said, how many men are affected by this each year? And it's like 1% of the population, but then 1% of the population is not chump change either.
Yeah.
So that's the perfect type of book to be print on demand because it's really not going to be something that warrants demand in a bookstore, but people will search out the help the book provides online.
Um, has has the tariff situation made it harder to find printing so that this maybe is an option that comes up more frequently?
Um, Knock on wood, books have been exempt from that so far.
Well, I don't think you can count on anything.
I
That could
agree.
that could change that could change before the end of this conversation, the way things go
That's
in
why I'm
this
knocking on wood.
administration. Uh, um, okay. All right. This has been really interesting. And I'm just going to give you the floor here to make any comments that you want about where the industry's going and what your hopes are for this new venture. So let me start with Tanya, and then Naren, having dealt with these technical difficulties, gets to have the last word. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll repeat what I've said earlier.
Yeah.
It's exciting for us. It's exciting to have the acknowledgement that, again, these businesses are rooted in strong fundamentals and there's a vision for growth. I think the efficiencies that we can bring to each other and the collaboration to find best practices to better serve our authors, it's all good things to come.
Okay,
Yeah.
your chance, Naren.
Okay, so I've been asked about this, as you can imagine,
Mhm.
quite frequently, and I'll tell you the same thing I tell others. This is great news for Amplify, its employees, and most importantly for authors, because we're on a mission to find other pieces to bring into this family of company that is going to expand the marketplace, expand the influence for our authors, and just stay tuned. You're gonna be hearing about some really cool things coming.
Well, it's definitely been my perception that hybrid publishing is really where much of the innovation in the publishing business is coming from. So I have high hopes for you. And if you screw up, I'll be documenting that as well. So,
We have no doubt.
yes. Okay. It's been great to talk to you, and I'll let you know when this goes up and is visible for everybody.